One of the things that I discovered in viewing not only our boat but a lot of other boats and what was going on with them is that the boats, everybody thought the boats had too much air in them and that they were real prone to flying. Well, what I found out was it was the exact opposite. No, they didn't have enough air and they weren't flying enough, and so they were reacting off of the water, and then the boats would react up, and then they look like they were flying. So I had this harebrained scheme. Well, we need to make the boats wider, get more air under them, and I got together with some Boeing people, and we made some modifications in the overall designs. I knew that we could build the boats lighter. The 73 Pan Pac was the first honeycomb boat, and based on what I learned off of that boat, as well as watching some of the other boats that had tried to copy that, I knew that we could take advantage of some of the strengths of the honeycomb and build the boats lighter and stronger. So we just started out with a clean sheet of paper and did everything different. That was the first boat that was really relied almost exclusively on bonding techniques to hold the boat together. And there are actually very few mechanical fasteners in it. We did a tremendous amount of testing of structures and glue joints and different types of glues and how the whole thing was going to be assembled before we ever even cut a single part out. When Bill first drove the boat, and I know he had a lot of trepidation about it, and I think it was entirely justified. I mean, he didn't particularly like driving up front. He'd driven the Thriftway too, and he didn't feel comfortable doing that. And the feel for a boat is way different up front than it is in the back. I mean, in the back you have a lot of visuals to work off of. In the front you don't. And he was concerned about that. He wasn't sure that he could make that transition. And then throw on top of that, we've got a fairly radical boat for its day. And so he's got to not only learn how to drive up front, he's got to learn how to handle this thing. And I've got to try to help him get through this and get the boat to a point where it's a raceable unit. And the first time we put it in the water, it wasn't. I think about 145 miles an hour, we're stretching the envelope right there. And we kept making changes, and all the way through that season we made changes. But I remember commenting to somebody at that point, in fact we went to Detroit and won there also, that if anyone else, I mean anybody else, had been in that boat for those first three races, not only would we not have won, they probably would have crashed it, because it was a real handful. But the boat didn't win those races because of the boat, even though it was a fast boat. It won because of Bill. Nobody else could have handled that boat like he did.
Obviously, we had a winning boat. It was a boat that simply dominated the hydroplane racing circuit for 4 years. In 1976, the boat won 5 races, finished second in 2, and failed to finish only once. I had faith in the boat. I had faith that it could continue its winning ways in 1977, but I even had more faith in my crew chief, Jim Lucero. Jim had designed a brand new boat for Atlas Van Line to me. It's a cab-over model, which means that the driver sits right up front, ahead of the engine. For years, I had been one of the most vocal critics of the cab-over design for hydroplanes. I honestly felt that a driver sitting in the bow just wouldn't have the control over his craft that he had driving in the stern. After almost 30 years of sitting behind the engine, I felt absolutely naked the first time I perched myself in the cockpit of the new design. And I'll have to admit, the first couple of times out in the new craft almost convinced me that I should maybe stay with the kind of boat that I was used to. But once I got my bearings straight, once I learned to master the Thunderboat and not let it master me, and once I could feel that the boat was an extension of me and I was comfortable with it and seemingly wearing it better and better, I became sold on the design and the possibilities of maybe even winning a race or two in it. So, with one carefully thought-out decision, I broke every rule in the book. I changed my horses in the middle of the stream. I withdrew my bet on a sure thing and played the long shot. It was the biggest gamble I'd ever taken.